friends! Today I will be sharing with you my very lengthy December and winter TBR. So grab yourself something cozy to drink like a hot cocoa and settle in, because all I want for Christmas, baby, is the time to read this TBR and... is Lexi and welcome back to my channel. It is lovely to see you here today. I am so excited because I have quite the lengthy winter TBR. This is the TBR that is going to kind of last from December probably until January, because these are very snowy, wintry reads and I'm very excited to discuss them today. But before we go ahead and get started with the TBR, I would like to thank the sponsor of today's video, which is Book of the Month. Thank you so much to Book of the Month for sponsoring today's video. I love Book of the Month. I work with them all of the time and I am like their #1 fan because I am a reader. And what service do they provide? Books! Which means they are my BFF for life, you know? Book of the Month is an online bookish subscription service. Every single month, their team vets hundreds of different books to curate a careful selection of books for you to choose from at home. And their lists range from adult thrillers to romances. Sometimes a little YA is sprinkled within that as well. Contemporary, nonfiction, you name it. If you are a reader, you will probably love their service. Every single month, you log into your account and choose which book or books you would like to be selected and sent to your door from their carefully curated lists. And if you don't find a book that you are vibing with that month, you have one of two options. You can either skip the month or you can go ahead and choose from their very large backlist title selection. This month, I chose 2 different books. My first pick this month was a romance called Kiss Her Once for Me by Allison Cotran. Cozy up with this delightful holiday tale as old as time. Boy meets girl, girl meets boy's sister, who she loves. And then my second choice was The Circus Train by Amita Parikh. All the world's a stage in this moving World War II story about a traveling circus and finding your path in dark times. And for the month of December, Book of the Month is running their best deal ever. New members can get their first book for just $5 with the code WONDER, which means you can choose any of their hardcover books for just $5. And shipping is now available in Canada as well, which we love. So thank you again so much to Book of the Month for sponsoring today's video. I could not recommend them more, you guys. I love their selection. I love them as a company. I highly, highly, highly recommend them. So with that, let's go ahead and get back to the TBR. So I am so excited for December. Winter is a really, really fun season leading up to Christmas for me because it's a great excuse to stay indoors, to get cozy, to put on oversized Christmas jumpers. It just makes life 10 times better when you're living in a Christmas sweater, you know? And I feel at my heart, I am a seasonal girly. I love putting together these TBR lists because I love romanticizing my life based kind of around the season that I'm in. So I love autumn and fall, but I also love winter. I love the snow, I love ice skating, or rather I love falling on the ice as I attempt to ice skate. And I feel like putting together these seasonal TBRs actually really helps me to romanticize whatever season I'm in. So I'm very excited to go ahead and share with you my list. Now, for the month of December, I am actually hosting a month-long readathon. The readathon is called Journey to the Candy Cane Ball. It's actually an exclusive readathon over on Patreon, so if you're interested at all, you can click down below on the Patreon link. I think this is for the secret passageway tiers and up. And if you join our readathon, you actually get to download the map illustration. That's right, there is a map. Basically, the readathon is trying to get through the Enchanted Winter Forest and up to our Candy Cane Ball. And we have to go through the Ice Palace, Gingerbread Village, Sugar Plum Sweet Shop, Fairy Tale Inn, the Snowball Battlefields, the Polar Express, all of these different places as we try to get to our Candy Cane Ball. I'm so excited. This was was illustrated by my lovely friend Jessica. I will leave all of her information down below. She is such an incredible illustrator and an incredible map maker, and honestly, like, I am such a fan of her work. A lot of my TBR is going to be trying to fit the prompts, but the prompts are a little bit of a secret, so I won't be sharing that here. However, if you're on Patreon, you've probably already seen my announcement video with all of the prompts and explaining what every single place has in store for the prompts. Yeah, you know what I'm saying. Okay, so if you are interested at all in checking out the readathon, the links to the Patreon will be down below, and this is for all members who are in the secret passageways and up. But for this winter TBR, I've actually created even more categories and things to hit, and I'm gonna tell you about that right now. So I'm a little bit of a mood reader. What I like to do is I like to come up with a big list of books and categories that I think I'm going to like, and then I kind of just let myself read whatever I want as the month progresses. So let me tell you a little bit about what I'm planning to read. Okay, so the things that I want to hit in December specifically are going to be, I want to read a holiday romance, I want to read a nostalgic reread of some sort, I would like to read a snowy thriller, a cozy fantasy, a bingeable series, and a magical middle grade. Those are all of the different categories that I would personally like to hit, because I feel like these categories are going to give my TBR a very magical and cozy feel for the month of December and possibly January too. So let's go ahead and get started. So the very first category is going to be a holiday romance. I've already talked about this, but one of the options is going to be Kiss Her Once for Me, and this is by Alison Cochrun. The next option that I might possibly pick up is going to be The Tourist Attraction, and this is by Sarah Morgenthaler. Maybe. And this is following Zoe, and Zoe is actually taking a solo trip to Alaska to kind of recharge. And while she is there, she meets Graham. Graham actually has like a little restaurant, I think called the Tourist Trap, but he actually does not like tourists. Except when Zoe comes through, he might change his views when he falls for her, inevitably. And then the next one is actually going to be Whiteout, and this is a YA. It's not an anthology, it's one big novel, but the novel has different authors who are contributing to it. And so some of the authors include Nicola Yoon and Angie Thomas, Nick Stone, so Daniela Clayton. There's quite a few, and this sounds so fascinating. A snowstorm essentially hits Atlanta, making the entire city like a whiteout. The city kind of shuts down because of this huge blizzard, and while the blizzard is taking place, all of these different Black teenagers actually kind of fit into one giant puzzle of like one big love story. That's kind of what the flap is telling me. I don't really know a lot about that, but I love the idea that every single person kind of fits together to create this puzzle of a love story in Atlanta during a whiteout or a blizzard. I think it sounds really, really magical, and I think it's going to be really, really, I don't know, perfect and cozy for this time of year. So I think I'm going to be reading this one. Next, let's talk about some nostalgic rereads. So every single December, I actually like to reread my favorite snowy books. One of the ones that I reread every year is The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe by C.S. Lewis. I've been reading this every year ever since I was a little girl. It just makes me feel really cozy and I don't know, like almost like being 8 years old again. I think that last Vlogmas, I actually read this and I tried Turkish Delight, and it was so much fun, and I kind of want to do that again this year. And this book, if you don't know, is about 4 siblings, Edmund, Peter, Susan, and Lucy, and they all go to a magical world called Narnia where it is always winter. The next nostalgic reread is Green Glass House, and this is by Kate Milford. I have read this 4 times now, and it's a cozy mystery, and it's also a middle grade. We're following Milo, who lives with his parents at something called a smuggler's inn, and one Christmas Eve, the hotel is flooded with strangers who seem to all know each other and are pretending they don't, and every single person has a secret, and Milo has to try to crack the secret of Green Glass House in time for Christmas. It's very cozy, it's very cute, it's a little spooky. It's honestly like my perfect book to read in the wintertime. And then the last one is a fairly recent one. I read this, I want to say 2 years ago, I think. This is In a Holidays, and this is by Christina Lauren. Kind of feels a little bit like Groundhog Day. I don't even even remember the main girl's name. Malin. Okay, so this is about Malin or May Jones, and she goes to this like little snowy cabin every single year, and she's had a crush on one of her best friends since she was like really, really young, and this is the Christmas she wants to tell him that she has feelings for him. She keeps messing it up and she keeps chickening out, and she has to relive like this snowy winter Christmas day again and again and again until she may or may not get it right. It's very cozy, very cute, and it's definitely my favorite Christmassy wintertime romance that I've ever read. Okay, the next category is going to be a snowy thriller. I love thrillers around, well, okay, let's be real. I love thrillers all year round, but there's something about like a snowed in thriller that really makes me feel super, super cozy and usually totally grabs my attention. The first one I really want to read is The Family Game, and this is by Catherine Steadman. I've talked about this, I think, in my October TBR, but I ended up saving it because I wanted to read it around the winter time. And this book is following Harriet, and Harriet and her husband go back to her husband's estranged family. And while they're there, they kind of enact a sinister and like deadly game. That's kind of all I know. It's definitely giving me Knives Out meets Ready or Not. I think I'm saying that name of the movie right. It feels really, really fun. I think there's an inheritance involved. There's a deadly game involved. There's an outsider, Harriet, involved. I think it's gonna be really, really twisted and really, really fun to read. And I don't know, the premise just sounds really cool. The next one is called Rock, Paper, Scissors, and this is by Alice Feeney. I really wanted to read this one last year, but I just kind of ran out of time. So this particular book is following a couple, and the couple are having marriage problems. And so they decide to kind of go up to this winter snowy cabin to try to rekindle their marriage, I believe, or like sort out some of their problems. And the husband actually has something called, I think, face blindness. I hope I'm getting this right, where basically he cannot recognize people by their faces. The flap says that one of them is lying about something. And so it's all about them and all about like what happens to them in this snowed in cabin. I don't know, it sounds really intriguing. And then the last potential one is one that I bought several years ago, and it's called One by One by Ruth Ware. This is about, I think, like a business retreat that happens at a ski lodge, and then one by one people start to die. It sounds very scary and dark, and honestly like a good time to read about, not to experience, but to read about, yes. The next one I have on the list is a cozy fantasy. I have discovered so many fun wintry cozy fantasies over the years. I loved Spinning Silver by Naomi Novik. I really enjoyed The Bear and the Nightingale by Catherine Arden. And so I'm always looking for like snowy type fantasies to kind of go to around this time of year. And this year, I think these are the two that I'm interested in. The first one is called A Winter's Promise, and this is by Christelle Dabos, I think. Christelle Dabos. She's French, so I'm not getting the accent right, but yes, she's French. This is actually a translated work. It's about Ophelia, and Ophelia is married off against her will to a person who I think is going to use her as a political pawn. And Ophelia actually has different magical abilities. One of them is that she has the ability to walk in and out of mirrors, which sounds pretty darn cool to me. I don't really know a lot more about this. It's YA, and I've heard excellent things, but I've wanted to read this series for such a long time. I've been a little bit intimidated by it because it's a little chunky, but I think that this would be the perfect time of year to start it. And then the next snowy, cozy fantasy I would like to read is going to be Crooked Kingdom, and this is by Leigh Bardugo. This is the second book to the Six of Crows series. I read the Six of Crows book, I think 2 years ago, and it ended up in my top 10 books of the year. And I've wanted to read this for a long time, but I just haven't made time for it. And so I'd really, really like to revisit the world and read this. And this book is following kind of like a group of misfits who all get together and they all enter into like the ultimate heist in book 1. I won't tell you what book 2 is about, but it's full of magic and mystery. Really, really shippable romances are in the first book. So I'm really interested to see kind of what happens in the second book. I highly recommend Six of Crows if you have not read it, by the way. It is a phenomenal YA book. And then the other cozy fantasy that I would like to read is A Wizard's Guide to Defensive Baking, and this is by T. Kingfisher. This is actually my book club pick for my Patreon, the Fox and Burrow Book Club, and this book is following Mona. Mona is not like other wizards. Her familiar is a sourdough starter, and I think her only magic involves bringing gingerbread men to life, which sounds so charming. And then one day somebody is murdered in her family's bakery, and she has to kind of like solve what's happening and who is murdering who. It sounds super cozy. I love that there's baking involved. I also love that there's gingerbread involved and gingerbread men involved. I feel like that's gonna be really, really fun to read around this time of year. And I think we're discussing this mid-December, so I really need to get on this. The next category is a magical middle grade. Now, much like thrillers, I love reading middle grades at all times of the year. But there are seasons where I'm more likely to reach for a middle grade, and to be honest, I feel like winter is peak middle grade season because a lot of middle grades take place in like the snowy, cozy months. I have 3 middle grades here that I am excited to potentially pick up. The first one is called North Child. This has been on my TBR for like the past 3 years, but I think this is going to be the year that I actually finish it because I have already started it and I am completely hooked. This is by Edith Pateau. It says Rose was born facing north, and the old stories say that she will venture far from home and embark on a dangerous journey. Making a pact with an enormous white bear, Rose travels on his back to a mysterious castle that holds a dark enchantment. I've also heard people say that originally this was marketed as like 3 separate books, and now it's like a bind up. But I am just so excited to read about it. So far, I think I'm on like page 30. It's very magical and super engaging, and it just feels like a very cozy middle grade. The next one is going to be The Girl Who Speaks Bear, and this is by Sophie Anderson. I love Sophie Anderson so much. Every book that I've read from Sophie Anderson has been a 5 out of 5 star, and I think this is the only book so far that I have not read from that author. Found abandoned in a bear cave as a baby, Yanka has always wondered where she is from. She tries to ignore the strange whispers and looks from the villagers, wishing she was as strong inside as she is on the outside. When Yanka has to flee her house, looking for answers about who she really is, a journey far beyond anything she ever imagined begins. From icy rivers to smoldering mountains, meeting an ever-growing herd of extraordinary friends along the way. And then the last middle grade actually that I would like to read this holiday winter season is going to be The Vanderbeekers of 141st Street, and this is by Karina Jan Glasser. This is a book that I'm actually doing a low-key buddy read with on my Discord. Technically, we don't have like a December book for the Whimsy and Wit book club, but this is going to be like our unofficial one that we're just discussing on Discord, and I'm super, super excited about it because I've wanted to read this one for years as well. We're following the Vanderbeekers and their children as they are unfortunately kicked out of their apartment in New York around the holidays, and the kids have to convince the landlord to let them and their family stay. It sounds very wholesome and charming. I don't think there's a lot of magic in this, but I love the like family vibes, and I've heard excellent things about this. This has so many incredible reviews and starred reviews, and it also has a very high ratings on Goodreads, so I have very high hopes for this one. I can't wait to pick it up. And then finally, the last category is going to be a bingeable series. In the wintertime, I love getting lost into like an entire world. It's like the perfect time, in my opinion, to really get invested in a series. So I have 3 different options for a series that I would like to read or reread. The first one is going to be Keeper of the Lost Cities, the series. I read the first book, and in my opinion, it was kind of like almost on par with Nevermore, which is my very favorite middle grade of all time, but I have not started the next book. And I think that's because this series is really intimidating. Like, they're all very, very long. But I loved the first book so much, and I would love to actually get invested in the other books in the series and really fall in love more with this world. This book is following Sophie. Sophie thinks that she's very, very different. All of her classes are super easy, and then one day she meets a boy named Fitz, and Fitz introduces her to an entirely different world filled with magic where Sophie may or may not start to feel like she belongs. The next option might be to reread the second book in the Nevermore series. I just reread this book for like the 4th time, and I love this book so much. This is my Whimsy and Wit book club pick for November. Rereading it has made me realize how much I love this world, and so I would really, really like to actually reread the second book and then finally tackle the 3rd book. This This is following Morgan Crow. Morgan Crow is destined to die on her 11th birthday, but she is saved in the nick of time by a man named Jupiter North, who then enters her into these mysterious magical trials to get her into a secret society. It is the most magical, incredible book series ever. And then the final series is, I think, the one that I'm leaning towards, and that is the Witch Hat Atelier. I hope I'm saying the name right. I actually have no idea, but the Witch Hat Atelier manga series. I read the very first book, this one here, which is called, well, it's just Witch Hat Atelier #1, and it's all about Coco, and Coco wants to learn magic and she wants to become a witch, but she thinks that you actually can't become a witch unless you were born a witch. However, she learns that you can actually learn how to do magic, and it's all about her becoming an apprentice to a witch. It is so wholesome, so whimsical, so charming, so cute. Like, I am completely obsessed with the first one. And so I went out and I bought like every single volume, and I just want to read and like live in this world. And then the final book is a book that is actually not in any category. So for Nonfiction November, I actually ended up reading 4 nonfiction books, which I feel quite happy about, like, to be honest. I feel really, really proud of myself. But one that I have not finished yet is called Nerd: Adventures in Fandom from the Universe to the Multiverse by Maya Phillips. And this, I think, is going to be in my top 10 list of the year because I'm so obsessed with it. I'm about 2/3 of the way in. I need to finish the last third of this book, but I would really, really like to make that a priority in December. And the book itself is exploring different fandoms and different fandom cultures and how those fandoms have impacted the author and how they impact other people who maybe were a part of them as they grew up. And I just love the conversations that this book is having. I love how Maya Phillips is tying together so many different themes and really important topics in different fandoms. I'm a person who loves being a nerd, and I love different fandoms myself. Being a part of like the Star Wars fandom and the Harry Potter fandom growing up, and all of these different fandoms actually really shaped who I became as an adult. And so I'm just really, really enjoying Maya Phillips' like take on all of these different fandoms. It's fascinating, it's well researched, it's just very intriguing and interesting. And like anytime I step into the audiobook and I step into reading this book, it just is so fascinating to me. And I don't ever want to stop reading it once I start. So that is a major priority in the month as well. But you guys, I think that is it. So now I don't want to read every single book on this list. Again, this is just more of like a mood TBR, and these are categories that I would like to try to read. So I'd like to try to do one of every single one of these categories. We'll see if it actually happens, because I know that December is also a really, really busy time of year in my personal life as well as my professional life. I usually attempt to do like weekly vlogmases and a bunch of other things. So we'll see how much actual reading I get, but I really hope that I can get a lot done. However, I think that that is it. So thank you guys so much for watching, and a huge, huge thank you to Book of the Month for sponsoring today's video. If you are interested in checking them out at all of the links will be down below in my description. I could not recommend them more. And a huge, huge thank you to all of my Patreons who are constantly supporting me, especially the Ink and Quill Club members who are the executive producers of every single one of my videos. All of their names will be listed down below in the description. I am sending all of you huge, huge hugs. And finally, thank you so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, please give me a thumbs up. And if you have made it to this point in the video, please let me know down below what book you are most excited to read this upcoming December. And also, please leave me the Christmas tree emoji. What is on the ceiling? And I think that's it for now, you guys. So until next time, book lovers, please keep your head in the clouds and your heart in a book, and I will talk to you very soon. Bye!
Hey, Santa, the city is covered in snow tonight. Where did my love go? Santa, I'm waiting for him, but he's